But the point is mostly not the updates, like is to find out like and answer any questions. I think that has been helpful so far. Just giving an overview of Airavata and then helpful. So you guys are welcome. Please join in like from next week on. Like we'll do this on a weekly basis.
Okay. Yeah.
But for this week, let's just keep the focus on the midterms and just making. I think it's more. Many of you have been making progress, but we don't have a trace of that on the development list or on the wikis clearly. So I think we should capture all of that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
So
John,
we
go ahead first.
so you want us to on like our where in the wiki do you want us to write our updates?
I would say just create a space. Like probably you can create a child page under your project, where you put your proposal.
Okay.
And just like put weekly progress or midterm. I think like you could take a look at Hasani's example. She's been writing a lot on the like both the design aspects. I think all of that will be useful. I would suggest to look at Hasani's project as an example, where
Okay.
the proposal and also the design, and then been looking into the sprints and also the midterm evaluation. I think that's a good reference.
All right. Okay. So what I've done this week is I've been working with Doug on to learn how the thrift models work because he had to learn that out in Bloomington. I didn't have time to learn that. Um, and I've been looking at the database tables for Airavata to see where I can fit in the benchmarking information. And I noticed in the SQL tables that experiment status is already recorded, but it's overwritten. Like when the experiment is created, it says it's created, and then when it starts executing, it changes to executing. And I was wondering if there's any way to, instead of updating the row that's in the table, if we just add a new one with the new state change, and then you can see like when it went from creating to queued to executing to completed, and then you could just calculate how long it ran from that, and then that could give you information.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, John. I think we've been discussing that in the point 15 changes. Maybe Supun has been probably is already working on it, but can you please bring this up on the developer mailing list?
Okay.
Sure, if Supun hasn't got to it, I think I think that's
Okay.
I think that's a limitation which need to be addressed.
Okay. But while I was looking through all of this stuff, I'm not sure. So I was looking in particular in app catalogs Airavata.status table, and I wasn't sure where that table was actually coming from because I couldn't find it anywhere in the thrift model. And so I'm not sure if that was just like are those SQL files just like written by hand, or they are generated by thrift, right?
Oh, okay. So I think the whole of the current database has been the way it's worked has been um, thrift models were generated. We are trying to explore. Actually, that was part of the original idea behind Tug's project. Was like to explore all the way. How can we go directly from the thrift models all the way to the database? But the current setup, it's not that way. Actually,
Okay.
we've been writing the thrift models and then writing the database and then from them up.
Okay, so okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. But to answer your question on the app catalog, yeah, app catalog is a broader, like kind of an umbrella term for all of this: the application interface, deployment, and the
Mm-hmm.
compute resource. So the table, like, and I haven't, I don't have it on top of my head which particular table you're looking at, but like, that could be it. Like, app catalog is a general term, and like, maybe there are specific tables you want to look at, like app interface and app deployment table.
Okay. Um, Also, I noticed that there's like a lot of duplicate of those SQL files. Like some of them are in 4 or 5 different locations around the source tree. Is there any like reason for that? I mean,
No, I think
obviously.
it could be the test. So whenever, like, I think it should
Okay.
be only at one place. whenever like to make test works, folks might have duplicated. That's not a desirable thing. So
Hmm.
it need to be a fixed up thing. So yeah, anytime you see that, like either point it out and even better provide a patch on how to address that.
Okay.
Smooth days and so on.
Um, and then I also have been having a problem running things on Stampede for the last few days. They just kind of go to executing, and then I never get any other feedback on them. And that happens on my local PGA and also on the dev PGA.
Oh, it could be that like some email parser. The email might not be read. Did you check? Did you give out an email in the Airavata server config? You need to give
Uh,
an email which the jobs gets email gets sent, and that the
Um,
email
I think I did configure that when I was out in Bloomington with Chathuri. But also the dev test drive PGA is not up for me.
which
I
one?
can't the dev.testdrive.iravata.org, and I know that Doug couldn't view it last night either.
Yeah, I can't see that now. I think something went wrong. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I was trying to run the Echo experiment on Stampede with that yesterday, and it was also nothing was finishing.
Hmm. Yeah, something wrong with this. Okay, we need to get this looked into. So, since for the benefit of Emery, can you please describe Doug and John, like what you're doing? I think Emery might be interested to know. And so Emery is, yeah, I'll let also Emery briefly describe what he's interested in Airavata. Then we will know, like what the relevance for your GSoC project, if Emery might be interested in that project.
Okay. So basically, describe our GSoC project, right? Is that
Yeah,
what you mean?
yeah, in general, like what.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, so my GSoC project was originally to analyze the data models and see if there are better ways to store it, but that's sort of changed now. Like what me and John are working on is we're trying to make this cluster recommendation system. So right now, the way the PGA client works for the users is, when after they choose an application, then there's some drop downs for the compute resources that they can choose from, and um, like ideally as an end user, you don't really know, or you shouldn't really have to worry about which compute resource um, that you choose, right? They might not know which is the best compute resource to use. For all they know, it's just a bunch of names, and they just pick one, right? So we want to provide a recommendation on which cluster is the best, and by the best or by the most optimal, we mean like or those or how we gauge whether a cluster is the best is through mainly two categories. Like whether these two categories are whether it's available and also how fast it runs, I guess, on a cluster. So availability, we want to achieve, that's going to consist of using like information from the Exceed API. So like availability means like whether or not the cluster is up and running if it's healthy. Also, ideally, you want when you choose a cluster, you want it to be the cluster that is like has the least wait time. So the Exceed API provides that information on like queue waiting times, right? So availability is like, oh, so say you have a job, and obviously you want it to go to the cluster that has the smallest wait time, like 10 minutes, as opposed to like 3 hours, right? So that's one metric, and then on top of just being available, you want to be able to choose a cluster that historically has performed the best or runs the fastest on with a specific application. So that falls under runtime benchmarking, and that falls under John's GSoC project, right? So, but together these two categories and these These two categories will consist of, or will make a cluster recommendation. So how we want to do that is we're basically, well, at least for me, it seems pretty straightforward. Like we'll probably make a new database table to store the cluster information, and have some sort of cron job that will, like on schedule, it'll update the database table with information from the Exceed API, and then we'll have a new API call that an API method that pulls information from registry from that database table for the compute resource information, and then crunch that data and then get a result, get a recommendation, and then feed it back to the PJ client. And to the PJ client, we don't want to. It's gonna just show up as like a little like tooltip, like, oh, this is our recommended cluster for the job. We don't want to restrict the users like freedom, I guess. So like they can still choose whatever cluster that they want, but we're just providing a recommendation for them. So that's like the overall our overall GSoC project. So any questions or anything to add?
Yeah. So okay. So you're trying to determine optimal clusters, and you're relying on the Exceed with the XD mod statistics or something on the different clusters, or they have some API for data on the various systems and their current performance. So
Yeah.
that is being dynamically updated.
Correct. Yeah.
So have you thought about recording any of that, or creating sort of a historical fake database of what the information was, so that you can go back and sort of mine prior jobs and see how well your prediction algorithm mapped against it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I believe you're talking about like the runtime benchmarking, right? Like so you.
Runtime benchmark, but there's also queuing time.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do right now is record the wait time as well as the runtime of every experiment on which cluster and stuff it was, so that we can go back and look at this data, and then also we can use this data in maybe like a machine learning algorithm or regression algorithm that can help us determine which cluster is will be the fastest for this particular application.
Right. But if you're recording all those times, are you also recording the current Exceed system statistics? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. I would imagine that we could, since we actually haven't started recording any of the Exceed system statistics, that we could do it in kind of a historic way, so that rather than just replacing the current status, we just add a new row of the status, so that when we go back and look at the start and queue times of the experiment, you can compare the timestamps of when it started and when it was created to the status in the history or the node health table.
Right, so it sort of give you some feedback on the quality of those statistics, and then also how, if you have some kind of a decision algorithm that you're making, you can sort of maybe test it against some of that data, that historical data.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like the holy grail. I've known people it's been like 10 years. There's been people trying to do the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're trying to decide which is the optimal cluster, and I really hope you guys. It sounds like you have a good plan. I'm looking forward to seeing it work. I have concerns about the real accuracy of their statistics. I mean, it's very difficult to predict what's the queuing time going to be for a particular job, because a lot of these decision managers for submissions have a lot of factors, and I think they probably vary considerably from from resource to resource. I know on Stampede there's some factors such as how many jobs have you submitted recently. So if you've submitted more jobs, then it actually pushes you back in the queue, and you get penalized for submitting too many jobs. And there's all kinds of crazy things that get involved. So
Right.
that's why that's another reason I'm thinking about system statistics first. You might want to look at how many jobs that specific project ID has submitted. I'm not sure if it's by user or project ID. I think it's probably by user.
By user.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So those other things are also like things to consider, like allocations and like how many SUs. I think that's what they.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also things that we should capture in the database table, right? And yeah, also like as like you said, like sometimes the Exceed API seems kind of shady. Like it seems so accurate. Like I think one time we saw that it had a -hour queue time or something. So yeah, that's why I think it's really important that to give a recommendation, but also not to restrict the user from choosing his own, making his own choice, because your recommendation can only be so accurate with and there are a lot of factors in play. So yeah.
I think I'm going to answer your question. Probably John and Doug are planning to work on this for 11 years and get it done, because everyone probably worked for 10 years. So I think that is putting it right. Initially, like we started out like saying how can we build a recommendation, but I think now it might be in the end actually it's literally recommending it. It's not really doing on behalf of user, but just like provide a guidance and like see how if the guidance is improved over time or something like that. And also probably we need to confine this at some point, like because it's even more challenging for molecular dynamics like applications, which is hard to even predict the runtime. But probably for applications like ultrascan and probably I'm not sure if Sumo also applies in this category, where you have more predictable usage of these applications. Hopefully that will confine the boundaries here to some extent.
Yeah.
Is there any way to check how many SUs you have on a particular cluster and then provide that information to the user in Airavata in like the PGA?
Certainly, I think we should certainly include that. I think that's because I think I forgot who's been asking. I think maybe Boris for the ultrascan, or it may be Sudhakar. There was an ongoing request that you should provide that information and also provide some estimate to the user to run this job for this much is going to cost you so much. And this is the community allocation. And I think that could be added in. There are near real-time queries you could query and refresh your database and, on what's the availability.
Yeah, I think that's also the point, Suresh. I think that's also why you wanted us to make that database table for the new cluster information, right? So we can provide, I guess, a view for users. Basically, how the Exceed portal hands it out, right? They tell you what's the cluster health for a specific, and they tell you the allocations for a specific gateway, right? And you want to give that to users, right?
Yeah, I think we should provision for that, even though the information sources might differ, but as you're saying, I think we should certainly provision for that within Airavata.
Yeah.
So is there an API? I mean, is there an API for project statistics like SUs and what's used, what's available, that kind of stuff in Exceed? I don't know. Or are you gonna have to go to some cluster? I know every time I log in to Stampede, it tells me how many SUs are left on various projects, but I'm not sure if there's an API you can actually call, or whether you have to do some system-specific lookups. But if you need something added to the API, we can try to push Exceed to do it.
I think that's the way to do it is, Emery. I think wherever there are APIs, you should do it. Wherever there are not, you just log into the machine and do show queue or show accounts and there are different commands on different machines which give this information, run them periodically, and just bring back and update them.
Yeah, I mean, there's always an ad hoc way to get around it, but it'd be much nicer if they had an API for that, for the project information.
Yeah. Okay, John, like, and I think, and Doug, I think probably you guys are both covering both of your projects. I think it's a good overview. I think, but it's important for you guys to capture this, where you are, and how do you plan to finish it up.
Okay.
With Steve so that we have it raised there.
All right. Yeah.
Certainly.
Should I give an update on my stuff now? Okay,
Yes, John, please go on.
Yeah.
Please go on. Yeah.
So this week I was working on that admin page that you wanted me to work on for the resources. Like you wanted to be able to switch on and off the visibility of a resource, right? Like the dummy page, yeah. So so I got that working. I can't share my screen, but
you could, Doug, if you want to, you could.
okay. Let's see.
The second one on the first
Screen share.
one should be there. There.
Entire screen. Oh, okay. All right, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's this? Let me just get the server running. So.
Yeah, I think while Doug is showing, I think a point for Imri and probably if Yanshu and Abhishek want to take a note is everything like whatever you see there in the PGA. PGA is just as a reference example. So PGA is querying the API. So anything you see here, that's implied that there are APIs you can program and then look at that and incorporate them in Janab.
So you guys can see this fine, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, when you go to this page, it just basically so I added a field to the compute resource description that says whether or not the resource is active, because so when you come to this page, it works now. You can just enable it or disable it, and then when you refresh it, you know, it maintains that property, or it actually gets the result. So yeah, that works now. The only thing I have left to do is to so this is the admin side, right? But you wanted to be able to so for the user, it has to get those changes, or it has to you wanted to get only the compute resources that are active, right? So like here, I just need to add that this small feature that says only get the ones that are active, only the compute resources that are active. Yeah, Suresh, I also had a question here, actually. I was working on this, and so there's like an API call that you make here for the compute, to get the compute resources, and it's specifically it's get available app interface compute resources in the API, and that only returns it returns a key value pair, a compute resource ID and a compute resource name. But there's no way of, like, ideally I wanted it to be able to, instead of just the resource ID and the name, I wanted it to return the entire, the full resource, like the whole entire description. There isn't an API call that does that right now, right? And I was wondering.
You could give one ID and then get an entire object, but you're right. I think generally we've been shying away from those methods because when things go big, those objects can let's say you have about 100 resources, at least in there something,
Yeah.
and then you should just get this we need to somehow. Yeah, I think it's a debatable topic.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But I was just like, because I was thinking, like the way it is right now, I'd have to query I have to query the API for each of the resources. Then I'd be making like multiple calls, like n amount of calls, or n is like how many resources there are.
Yeah.
So I just thought like, oh, it would be good if there were an API method where it just gives me all of it. So that's just one call. But yeah, I was just.
Yes.
Yeah.
People, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I can stop sharing my screen now.
I was not sure, Supun, if you can hear, because Supun has been looking at these kind of problems in the experiment context. I think that whatever he's been trying to explore there applies here too. Okay, anything else, Doug and John?
I also have been, in the last week, I've been working on a little test application that I can just put on whatever cluster or compute resource I'm working on that can kind of mimic a few types of runtime. So you can pass it a size, and then you can pass it a parameter as well as like a growth parameter. So you can say, run this as O of n, or run this as O of log n, or O of n squared, or whatever. So that once I have the benchmarking data, then I have an easily controllable experiment that I can run to kind of plug that data into some sort of machine learning, whatever, regression, whatever, to try and see how predictions work and stuff.
Okay, I think that'll be interesting. But which application you are using just to get you prepared up, John?
I just made my own shell script that you can just pass it that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Yeah, in terms of next week, I think next week is the last week before the midterm evaluation, right? So I think next week we want to, I think John and I want to add or start working on adding that new database table to capture the compute resource information that we were talking about. So yeah, we're gonna probably have to bother.
I also want to have it start recording the start times and wait times and all of that stuff in the database, as well as the new table for the resource health and status.
Yes. So we're probably going to bother Chatturi a lot next week.
Yeah, please, and also Supun. Supun is also on the call, and I think Supun is very familiar with all the databases. And actually, he's in fact the one making modifications for the 0.16. So Supun might be in better context here.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Supun, also before you joined, John had a couple of questions on the status being overwritten, but we preserving all the different state changes. Have you been considering to incorporate that in the 0.16?
I didn't get it correctly.
So John was asking because currently, let's say we say experiment moved from launch to executing, we override the status, right? So I think we need to somehow get it so that for one particular given state, we should only have one field. That means we don't need to create an entry every time we update it. But when the state moves to a new thing in the state machine, we need to make sure we capture the new entry so that I think the use case is we can go back and check when the experiment moved from executing to launch to executing to complete, and so on.
The current one, we are overriding the same one, Suresh. We don't keep the old ones in the database.
Can you please consider this for 0.16 to fix this?
Yes, yes, that can be fixed in the data model.
Yeah. Yeah, please consider that because I think that will give enough good information for the scheduling and recommendation systems.
Okay, so I think we can have a additional field in the status model pointing to the previous status. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, John, if you don't mind, please send an email to the devlist and then let's follow up, briefly discuss on that so others are on aware as well.
All right, will do.
Okay, I know, John, you have to go. Just feel free to-
Not yet, but
yeah,
soon.
yeah, anyway. I think we are done with your updates, so anytime feel free to drop off.
Okay.
Hasni, can you please describe yours? I think it'll be useful if you can share your screen and also walk through. I think it'll be, other students might find it useful to just follow your lead on how you are doing all this updates and keeping others.
Yes, actually, Suresh, I don't have that demonstration kind of thing to show. So I'll give an update what I have done so far.
Yeah, I meant Hasni, to clarify. I don't mean the demo.
So
The demos next week.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go on, please.
So yes. So first, I sent you a pull request on the work done on Sprint 1. So which contained the modification to the API to accept the auth to client to talk to the secured API. So after that, the things that I have implemented, I could not merge with the latest master because of this restructuring going on. So I'm implementing them on a branch in my phone. So I'll be merging them once the master is stabilized. All right. Hello.
Hasni, yeah, you're briefly breaking up, but I think I got that. So I'm just looking at your on the wiki update of the mid evaluation.
Yes.
So yeah, I think like for the trunk, I think it's getting close. Hasni, Supun might have more insights. The registry is getting fixed up. Maybe not more than early next week. You should have the trunk stable back so that you can merge back and send the pull request again.
Yeah, sure. That would be great so that you can merge it with the latest one and test. So currently I'm working on a branch.
Sure.
Which are stable before the restructuring was done. So main things that I have been implemented so far are the modification to the API to accept the auth token, validate, and then exposing the Airavata API over TLS and making the corresponding changes to the client side.
Yeah. So
those are the things that I have been implemented so far.
Yeah.
Yes, Suresh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think Emre and the Janap team will have impacts with the security, how it's done, and they all have use cases for different things, which is basically the web flows. I'm guessing the Janap might touch all the flows, all the workflows, simply because there are desktop clients, web-based clients, and maybe mobile clients and Android app and all going on. So if when you do the demo, I think it'll be useful to dig into some of these details. So Emre and other Genap student might want to comment on them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to have
for the
try some of these things. Actually, like with your simple API methods, try one or two methods and make sure they can work through different flow patterns here.
Yeah, so I have documented how to run the existing Java client sample in one of the documents that I have created. Anyway, I can walk you through next week on that sample.
Yeah, I think probably Abhishek and Priyanshu might need a little bit of your help to make sure they can get C++, Python, and PHP or the client examples working.
Okay.
You probably should have already figured out the PHP OAuth client, but he will probably need to because of the PGA. but they might need your help on the C++, Python. I'm not sure if I'm missing anything here.
Yeah.
Um,
On GenApp side,
so,
right now we're utilizing C++, PHP, and Java. So we'll need to do that. Right now, they're sticking at 0.15 release of Airavata to avoid the security bits, and I figured that would be something we would bring online, in the second half of GSoC, once everything else is running nicely.
Sure, I fully agreed. I just want to make sure, like, you guys give some design feedback right away, Emery, like, just to make sure. Yeah. So, from my understanding, the Android one is very similar to the Java one, or Android is being any special case?
Android's actually been generated from the Qt5 C++ version. So you can use Qt5 to generate native Android apps.
Nice.
The one issue we have with that is, and Priyanshu perhaps will report on this, was there's probably a lot of overhead getting the full Airavata SDK and the Thrift and the Boost dependencies to compile for a Android app, and it's probably overkill. So Raminder, I guess he didn't come today, but I mentioned that on the HIP chat. He's got a potential RESTful API that we can use as a broker to Airavata to simplify some of the calls. So we'll probably use that, and then that would probably just be an HTTPS connection to that, and then we just have to get it going from his. I don't know if he's doing a JavaScript client or what, but that would probably maybe PHP or JavaScript or something that would communicate with the API. Do you guys have a JavaScript interface for like Node.js or anything like that for Thrift? I think Thrift does support JavaScript as one of the interface types.
So actually, yeah, I think Hasani dropped off at the right time, so we'll wait for her to come back. To me, what is we explored them before, Emery. So means technically they work or in theory, like there is a Node.js and everything, but it requires Thrift to be set up in a way with a web server backend. Right now, like we use the native services generated within the Thrift. We don't necessarily, we don't have to proxy that through a web server. So you could proxy the Airavata API server with a Apache or an Nginx and then could achieve some of this functionality. But we've been trying to not do that unless there is a need, simply because it will be a big performance hit also. Thrift natively exchanges all the information over binary. And once the web servers and all are there, routing and all need to be taken into account. So can you please brief the use case again? Why do we need, there's a Qt, there could be a C++ SDK, right?
Yeah, there's a C++ SDK, but can that be compiled and it has Boost dependencies and Thrift dependencies, both which are huge. And so I'm not sure what barriers Priyanshu may run into on the, on trying to get that to compile for Android, because there are restrictions, and whether or not he's going to have that full set of libraries available. Or be able to make them available under Android is a question. Do you have any, Priyanshu, can you say something about that? Or
the Boost is alright, but the Thrift dependencies are causing a lot of compilers. So I'm trying to fix that. If that runs, then I think that it will be fine.
So you're running into issues.
So there are some issues with the Thrift dependencies. Actually, I have to configure Thrift with Android, and after that only it will run with the Qt Android editor. Yeah. So while configuring Thrift with Android, I'm getting some compilers.
Priyanshu, can you please do a favor? Can you isolate this problem of Airavata and get onto the Thrift user mailing list? Thrift user list is very active. You get very insightful feedback there. Can you just isolate this problem and then just try it out with a native simple Thrift example? And then see and then get some feedback from the Thrift user mailing list suggestion on how they would like to suggest to go with it. Because I worry many times when we run into this, sometimes we get into these perceived use cases instead of the real ones. So it'd be good to try this out and get some feedback on the thrift.
Sir, as I said, currently I'm configuring Thrift with Android, and there I'm facing some errors. So shall I post those in the Thrift mailing list?
Yeah, please. Yeah, basically just make up a simple thrift API example. Uh,
Uh,
so I think here we need to take Hasini's help too, because this will have security implications for future. So if you can involve Hasini also, I mean, and just basically come up with a small example. These are thrift example. This is how it will look, and this is our Android example. How do you suggest the server be? Because in the current way, the security manager is involved. Anyway, let me not jump into conclusions here, but let's isolate just a simple thrift examples and take it to the thrift user mailing list and ask them first what do they suggest, and then if you can point Hasini to that, she can have make sure she will have the security implications also factored in.
Yeah, my
Sorry,
concern is
Suresh.
I'm sorry.
I dropped out. I just connected now.
Sure, Hasini, what we are talking is the GenApp, what Priyanshu and MD and others have been working here. They have a need to do Android-based clients to Airavata.
Okay.
So those Android clients currently are generated from a C++ based framework called Qt. I'm not sure you're familiar with Qt itself, but
No, I'm not.
yeah.
But yeah, we can.
Emily, can you please describe what Qt is?
Yeah, Qt is a graphical user interface tool that provides cross-platform compiling of GUI applications. It's all C++ based, and it has its own, a lot of its own versions of things like STL, and a lot of the boost capabilities are just sort of included as native Qt type calls. And so all of a sudden now we're duplicating a lot of extra load code. I mean, I'm not sure what it really needs on the thrift side, whether it really needs to link in libraries or anything like this. Thrift seems to be just a bunch of header files, really. I'm concerned that trying to stretch out Qt's Android version of Qt5 with its compilation process with additional calls. Well, I know that standard Qt utilities like HTTP calls, posts, gets are fine and are native to Qt, but bringing on the whole thrift level is something I don't know about, and I'm just concerned that he's going to run into some, spend a lot of time trying to get something to work. That Priyanshu will spend a lot of time trying to bring all these dependencies in. And maybe not. Maybe it'll be an easy task, but
because I'm guessing. I'm just hoping that it'll be a later one, Emery, simply because it's just socket programming. Means unless the Qt cares about marshalling and unmarshalling of the data, the actual RPC communication should be just the socket programming, which I think that already should be embedded, and there's nothing thrift specific there. The thrift specifics comes in with the marshalling of the data. It should not be coming at the communication layer.
Okay. And that marshalling business is just probably standard C++ or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think like the security TLS over socket programming, so Hasini, correct me here. So what Hasini's will require just a TLS, communication over socket for thrift. As long as it's supported, I think we should be good.
Yeah. A creation of the secure client is that method is also exposed in Airavata client factory. So you can directly call that to get a thrift client. But that is for Java API, I think.
I would say, Priyanshu, please ask this on the user mailing list. If you have any trouble, if you didn't follow what exactly, please check with me offline. We just need to cover, you need to just give them the context, what you're trying to do. Just separate out the Airavata part, because this is generally a thrift example. So that way, like the moment you say Airavata, the thrift community will say, oh yeah, probably we don't know. Instead, if you just say, I have a small thrift server, I'm making this, I have this Qt framework here, and I'm trying to make it talk over a secure channel, just ask their suggestions. I'm hesitant to directly dive into the Node.js and these HTTP based approaches until we have a real need for it.
Yes, sir.
Suresh, I have a couple of questions. Can I ask them now?
Yeah, please go on, Asin.
Yeah. So while implementing these things, I have few things to clarify. So currently, I have been focusing on this API server only, for both modifying it to accept tokens and exposing it over TLS. But I noticed that you have a couple of other servers as well, such as orchestrator server, GFAX server, etc. So do I not have to worry about those things? Like, do they have APIs exposed, which should be protected too, or just the Airavata API server?
Just the idea of the API, Hasani, simply because all the CPIs are for internal use. I think they will be, the assumption is they'll be run under a DMZ kind of setup. They'll be properly
Okay.
firewalled. Only the APIs,
APIs.
yeah, they'll all be like firewall controlled. Only a API server gets exposed to the outside world. CPIs are only internal purposes, so we don't need to add security there.
Okay, so also we need to ship a default key store and a client trust store with Airavata with this TLS implementation, as well as it is required in OAuth as well. So I added two to the bin distribution, this bin folder of server distribution, but I saw that in the source code there is a existing key store. Do you have an idea of why it has been added? Like,
Yeah, I think so. There are, okay. Let me see if I can bring the full context here. So one is there is a key store. There are actually two key stores. Actually, there is one key store which the credential store encrypts the data it's storing into the backend. So that's again all about credentials. It has nothing to do with the current API security. It's more about storing the computational account credentials in the MySQL database credential store has. So it's using that key store to use that to store that information. So this is the paper from Amila I might have pointed before to you. It's a credential store.
yeah, actually, yeah, I noticed that credentials too has some configuration in Airavata server properties, which points to key store, but that is not pointed to that key store. I mean, that key store is not shipped with the distribution. The instruction says that we should generate a key store and a trust store and change the configurations if we want to run the credential store.
Yeah, that's for the credentials. So, and then there is a second key store also file you might have noticed where Chetri was trying to make a credential store as a secure TLS service, the CPI itself. And then like there is that key store just used for that CPI thrift communication, which also I think we'll hold on to that because I think we will take the same approach there where the APIs are protected and the CPI can be within a DMZ.
Okay, all right. So anyway, so after this implementation, we'll have to ship a default key store, and in the actual deployment of a serious deployment, they have to like replace those key store with their certificates, etc.
Yeah, we can take the same WSIS approach, right? So the default one, and then we replace. I think, I think you're right on that. I think let's go with that part.
Okay, and I need 2 points to clarify 2 points which were not so certain during the last meeting. So if you remember during the last meeting, we had 2 uncertain points. One is the usage of authorization code grant type.
Yeah.
And also the second one is the session management thing. So I read about the advancement, the recent advancements in OAuth, during the last couple of weeks and clarified everything. And I documented them in the design details document, if you noticed that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I read that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all the details are finalized and documented. Only thing that I have to add the images there. But just to give us a summary, if the client or the gateway in our case is capable of spawning a web browser, the recommended grant flow to go is the authorization code grant flow. But since we had to support, both web-based clients, mobile clients, desktop clients, etc., all of those might not be capable of, embedding a browser or spawning a browser to support that grant flow. So then, in such cases, we'll have to use the other grant flows. But even in the web-based gateway, currently the user provides the credential and logs into the gateway, right, for the PHP gateway. So that means we assume that the user already trusts it to provide its credential. So after the user logs in to the PGA, there's no point of redirecting the user again to the authorization server, which is the identity server, to enter the credential and grant the authorization. So that is why I suggested a resource owner password credential for all types of clients. But we can implement authorization grant type for the web-based client, which is PGA, using a protocol that supports both authentication and authorization delegation. So have you heard about the OpenID Connect protocol?
Yeah, we talked about a lot in detail about that. Yeah, Hassan,
Okay.
please go on. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the option to go with with the web-based client.
Yeah.
So I'll implement a sample PHP client just for demonstration purpose. And if you, after demonstrating it, if you're fine with it, we can integrate with it with the PGA. But then we'll replace both the authentication and obtaining of the token with this OpenID Connect.
Yeah. So, sorry, I think I lost. I think I got most of it, but I lost this part, Hasani. So, if you have a desktop client, then why do you use a resource owner password? For the web, it makes sense. You can make the PGI be trusted by Airavata. But what about the desktop client?
Yeah, for the desktop client, you cannot redirect the user to the authorization server and get the user redirected back from authorization server to the desktop client. Right? I searched whether desktop clients are capable of spawning a browser and like that, but it's not so feasible, it seems. So, as I mentioned, in the cases where you have clients which which cannot redirect the user to authorization server, you have to use the resource owner password current type or client credential current type.
Okay.
So basically, authorization code is a web-based, has a web-based flow.
But will even the client credential grant type apply here, because we need to kind of, okay, that means the client credential can be renewed, because desktop and even the mobile clients will fall into this category, right? So
yes, both the mobile clients and the desktop client. So actually, the Java client that I have already, Java sample that I have already written, it uses the resource owner password grant type. So if you use client credential, then you should have a separate other mechanism to authenticate the user at the client.
So I think just on a timeline here, Hasani, let's try to once expand. I think this is already good information. We just need to expand and get a review on this. So we have the review for half day. Let me check if I know the time already. Yes, I think. Oh yeah, it's from 9 a.m. Eastern to 2 p.m. Eastern time on July 9th. So
July 9th. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
July 9th, if you can please make sure you are available.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, on
I
July
think,
9th. Yeah, July 9th, and we'll go through this. And maybe before July 9th, if possible, let's get a review also done by Prabhat. Just to make, I mean,
yeah.
mainly on the IS side, and basically like actually it's more on me too. If you can help me, like kind of come up with. I just want to make sure we document everything and and the Airavata project, how we are planning to use IS, and then
Mm-hmm.
Prabhat to make sure he's aware of it, and then yeah, since we are relying on that product, I just want to make sure Prabhat is aware.
Okay. Yeah, yes, you can, if you can ask, that would be good. I'm not sure if I will be able to contact him before July 9th because he's kind of busy. So I'll be meeting him in August, early August, so I can have a chat about this.
Yeah, either that also fine, but I mean either. So we just need to see if we want to do this before July 9th or after 9th, but we just need to make sure we get a formal security review done by CTSC on July 9th, and then once the full implementation is done, I think we also have a meeting scheduled once the final. So the July 9th is a kind of a midterm review to make sure we are on the right path. And then
Okay.
we also agreed for a full review, for the final review on September 10th and 11th. So
Okay.
at that point, they will actually formally approve and then give a formal official kind of approval that Airavata is following all the security.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, but back to the technical point, I think like yeah, please go on with the OpenID Connect. I think that's the direction in general what we want to move forward.
Yeah, for both so that's facilitates both authentication plus obtaining of the auth token at the client side.
Yeah. So some of the like the in common clients we work with were various university-based authentications are not yet there to adopt OpenID Connect, but at least most of them are adopting OAuth 2. So, but
Yeah, Excel standard.
we clearly know that it's on their roadmap also to go towards OpenID Connect. So I think like it's wise for us to plan for the OpenID Connect option.
Yeah, for the PHP client. Okay, so the second thing, Suresh, last time we talked a bit about the session management thing at the server. So actually, as Supun pointed out, there's no notion of session at the Airavata server. So it will not be named as the session management, but in order to avoid multiple calls to IS for the same token, the same user with the same access token, and who is invoking the same operation, we will maintain a caching mechanism at the Airavata server side to avoid such multiple calls. So I wanted to clarify whether you're using existing some kind of a caching framework currently, or will we have to introduce a new?
Not yet. At some point, at least theoretically, we were looking at Memcache, but haven't not yet done anything because the main reason we held off on that, Hasani, is we haven't yet load balanced the API server. We just wanted to make sure whatever caching we go with will work on with HA proxy or something like that. Most likely, again, if you have a better suggestion, please come back with it.
Yeah.
Tentatively, we are thinking HA proxy plus Memcache.
Oh yeah, I also looked at the Memcache. I heard that it's getting popular. So yeah, I'll have that item to be done. I mean, at the later stage.
Yeah.
But just wanted to update you that it is not the session management thing, but we'll be using caching mechanism to avoid the redundant calls.
Yeah, for sure. I think like whenever we write a paper, certainly the performance we need to justify. I think so we need to have a caching in the plan to make sure to mitigate the performance degradation.
Yeah, actually at the server side.
Yeah, on the server. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Hasini. I think I would recommend other students to look at Hasini's documents there, both the design and the status. Yeah, send this. I think it's very detailed. Yeah, thanks, Hasini, for that lead.
Okay, so thank you.
Okay, Pankaj, you want to go on?
I'm audible now?
Yes, yeah, we can hear it now.
Okay. So I don't have any video device, so you guys cannot see me. So starting from the beginning, my project plan was to integrating Apache Mesos with Scientific Gateway Apache Airavata. But I think till the midterm, we are going to put everything in Docker containers so that the initial hurdles of installing all those Airavata PGA and other stuff in a Docker, and developers can pull and install everything. So update is like, as I already sent an email to the dev list that Docker for Airavata PGA is ready. So if developers can go and pull and try that and give me feedback if it's working fine or not, it will be good help for me and to rectify if anything goes wrong. There are few challenges I face. That is, can I ask the questions, Suresh, now?
Yep, please go on, Pankaj. Yeah.
Yeah, the few things that I feel like if you can change it, it will be good for Dockerizing, because once we install the Airavata PGA, we have to make a couple of changes, like the port numbers where we're expecting the PGA to run and the Airavata service to which the PGA is going to communicate. Now, once we install the PGA, we are expecting that the PGA will communicate with the default Airavata service. But we don't know in the live system it can be a different Airavata service. We have to make this modification manually. So if we can just make it as an environment variable, and once we run the Docker and we pass this environment variable, then in the runtime it can be set up automatically. So that part I think we have to modify. Does it make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it does. But I'm just thinking on I could probably foresee why you are asking that, but I'm a little bit hesitant to directly jump onto it because the users who are not running the outside Docker,
I understand that. Absolutely. If you're not running on the Docker, then you don't go with the approach. What my plan is, like, what I'll do, I will install everything in my Docker, and I get control of the Docker shell, and I go and change those things in Docker container, and then publish the Docker. Once end user go and try with the Docker container, then they can pass the environment variable with that. So in that way, we can keep a two version. One is like non-Docker version, another is Docker version. So
yeah, or the alternative way will be to set this environment only in the PGA startup script, something like that. No, actually, these are error pro. I'm just so I think yeah. Please put the mail on that on the dev list. Let's discuss that, Pankaj.
Okay.
Because, we just make sure, we are not answering a lot of support emails saying that, hey, an old environment variable is set, they didn't clean it up, then they try to start it up, and
yeah. So that's why, instead of setting somewhere the environment variable in a script, what I prefer, like once you start, go run the Docker container, you at the runtime parameter you give the environment variable, because your ISS server or your orchestrator or Zookeeper server running on which ports and what is the server and the virtual machines. Then and there you can pass the variables and your environment is ready, instead of passing them in a shell script or somewhere which may change in a period of time. So I think fine. I mean, I can just document and send an email to dev list and see all the developers what's their comment on that. I have, I mean, apart from that, I mean, PGA is ready. So what my this week's goal is to have a Airavata service ready in a Docker and make PGA and Airavata communicate with each other. So that's the challenge that I mean, I feel like communication between Dockers will be a little tricky. So I'll give it a try, and definitely there is a way out. I find out you can link one container to another and have them communication in between. So I just wanted to ask few things. As you know, the Zookeeper is not an Apache product, and they have their own independent containers. Same for RabbitMQ. But what about Orchestrator and what is that? Credential ISS something. These are like our own product.
No, so only the identity server is the WSO2 product, but there is a mailing list. So you could just ask on the mailing list on the WSO2. Hasni might have it. Maybe Hasni or Supun, one of them might be able to tell you which mailing list is the right one to ask. If there is a Docker for IS identity server.
Oh, identity server we have. And Orchestrator is also Airavata's own product?
Yeah, for now you are just taking the approach of bundling all of Airavata components into one Docker, right? So just stick to until we get all the variables. Then Orchestrator, then we will go into componentizing, Dockerizing different Airavata components separately.
Right. So yeah, that will be my plan for the next week, coming week, and by end of today, I'm planning to publish the normal. I mean, everything in a single Docker, like all the orchestrators, zookeepers, everything in a single Docker Airavata service. So
Yeah, Zookeeper, you might be able to find it outside. Zookeeper, RabbitMQ, MySQL, you should be able to find it in the public repo.
see, currently, if I install a Airavata service, all those things comes all together. Apart instead of, I mean,
Yeah, I
having
see.
the separate Dockers. Like Zookeepers, I know they have a Docker already available, but still it comes with the Airavata package, I believe, because
No, it's embedded. Yeah, yeah, you're right.
it's
So let's go with this. So let's use
yeah,
basically to put it right.
yeah,
Let's use the embedded Zookeeper, which is bundled in the Airavata, and also the embedded database, which is the Derby database,
right,
is
yeah,
bundled. So all you need at this point is PGA, RabbitMQ, and Airavata, which bundles Derby and Zookeeper and Airavata.
right. So I need
And
three Dockers working together.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so I mean, this is my goal for till then. I mean, the end of this week. I mean, this is today. Next week, I will like find out how to Docker other individual components, and I'll let you know. And so I have one question, like regarding that midterm evaluation. We have decided that this will be our goal till the midterm, like Dockerizing all the components, and then onwards we'll move with Apache Mesos, because we know Mesos works well with all the Docker containers. So that part I will explore after 26th.
Yeah, please. I think like one thing, Pankaj, on your thing, we need to make sure you are sending this update like just the way you describe right now to Timothy.
I published all these goals and targets in the
Yeah.
Melangana site. I believe if I publish something there as a mentor, he gets to know.
He should, but just send an email also saying why you are like, because he must be wondering why you're not contacting him for any Mesos help.
Okay,
Just send him saying that the first until midterm I got familiarized with Airavata and trying to Dockerize everything in Airavata.
mm-hmm.
And in second half is where you will need his mentoring help on the Mesos side. So just
Okay.
send him an email also.
Okay, I'll do it now. And next week I may need help from any of the Apache, I mean, core service developers, like maybe Samira or somebody who can help me how to segregate all the components and have them installed separately and communicate together.
Yeah.
So
Actually, I'll help you with that because I'm anyway working on the build for 0.15 release. I should have that. So next week I should, like when we are starting getting close to releasing 0.15, you should have that segregation already.
oh, okay, fine. Then that will help. One more thing that I want to ask, like I was discussing in the dev labs with Lahiru. He knows that Docker stuff a little bit. I don't know. I mean, he was helping me. I mean, asking questions and all. He asked me one question like, what's our goal? Are we going to deliver one Docker image to the developers or a Docker script? Because uh, if we give the Docker image, what I believe it will be very easy for the developers. They need not to think about anything, just pull and have it ready. And instead, if we give them a Docker file, our versions may keep on changing, because 0.15 is stable now. In near future, we may have Airavata 1.0 releases and all. Then developers has to keep on changing those script, and I mean they have to put effort on that.
No, I
So
think Lyro is right on. Actually, I'll get back on those thread. I think you need to support both, Pankaj, because
okay.
users will care about Docker images because they'll only work with a release product. But
Mm-hmm.
developers are working on a day-to-day basis. They need the Docker files, like as a live one,
Mm-hmm.
so that you are taking the live pull and then working on it. So you are both right. We need to accommodate both actually.
Okay, but what if, like, if we know as a Airavata developers, okay, 1.0 is a stable release and other developers are working on the later part. So if you make a image on 1.0 and let it publish to others so that they can take, don't you think it's like make their life easy, because they need not to think about other hurdles like how to clone and how to fix all the stuff which is still in building, instead of
No,
having
depends on developer. What is you are referring to developer? I think Lyro is referring to an Airavata developer, someone who is making an Airavata code change. They really need to work on the latest one. Where they will not be able to benefit from the old one, right? They're actually trying on a different thing. They're actually developing it.
Oh, okay, got it. I think if they want to explore the current branch, instead of
Yeah.
taking a stable one, they want to make some changes, then they need that.
Yeah, if you're talking about like the others, like here I'm referring to them of Airavata users, like someone developed
Oh,
yeah, like Janap. will all fall into the Airavata users category, where they're trying to use the Airavata release table one. You're right, that use case. But there are
Okay.
developers who are working and extending Airavata, so they will need the latest version.
And here I can point one thing, like if you have the image, even though like it's being imported by a developer who wants to make modification, actually the good thing about Docker is once you have the Docker install, it is like your embedded kernel inside your Linux. You can go and open the kernel and do all the stuff what we usually do in our Linux bash script. So we can just open this kernel and make all the changes. Like we can change the branch, we can re-download the clone. I mean from the GitHub and all this stuff we can do. So I believe like if you give them the image, they can go and log into this image and they can make the modification locally, whatever they do want to do with that. So I mean that can also help the developers instead of trying to modifying the Docker file and all this stuff.
Yeah,
And,
let's continue discussing on that on the Pankaj on the mailing list. I think
okay.
I'll also reply to that early next week. So,
Okay, fine.
yeah, in short, just remember those terms. Like whatever Lyra is asking is to make the life of the Airavata developers who are changing the code also easy, in addition to the user.
Right. Okay, I'll just keep it in mind and I'll keep on sending emails to dev list.
Yeah, please engage like that. I think Airu is probably currently working using Docker in his job, and he's probably having a lot of good insights there.
Yeah, he has actually. He's helping me. Okay. Okay, that's all from my side.
Yeah, thanks, Pankaj. Yeah, I think we're running out of time, so let's get to Abhishek and Priyanshu then.
Hello, sir.
Okay, I'd like to say something while we have Raminder online. So Raminder, with this whole issue that we'd already discussed with the doing the direct Airavata thrift calls versus a REST service, Raminder's, I guess, set up something with a RESTful service. I don't know if it's automatically generated, because I think that's possible to convert that. So, Raminder, did you have something to say about this? What you got? What have you got? I guess he's. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, you're audible. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if Raminder is.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay. First of all, updates. So I've integrated PHP with Airavata. Now PHP works with Airavata 0.14 and 0.15. And second, I've made the application for Java also. Now in PHP, I have two issues. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, go on.
Suppose we have registered some gateway. Now I want to check if the registered gateway had some gateway profile registered, but there is no method to check it. Means I can get, I have an API get gateway resource profile, but if there is no registered gateway resource profile in that gateway ID, I'll get an error. Hello.
What error? So this is for the gateway resource profile, you said?
Yes,
Abhishek?
sir. Yes, a gateway resource profile. Suppose I registered for a gateway, and now I want to check if there's some gateway resource profile. There's no direct API right now in Airavata. So it is just a suggestion if we can include some gate to check.
So you want to check for a given resource for a given gateway if there is a profile
Yes.
already exists. Is that what you're wanting?
Yes. I can check it by calling get all gateway profiles and then check it in the list. But there is no direct method to check it.
No, yeah, I think there is no, instead of, okay, let's do this. So just like, it means I need to refresh my mind. It's possible that there is this maybe a method is not there. just like you need to have a call for a given gateway and a given resource. You pass it and ask, give me the profiles. If the value is null, you assume that there is nothing. If there is a
Sir,
value, there is
but if
something.
the value is null, it is throwing an error. It's not giving me null. It's throwing an error. Means like suppose I call the API. Uh, one second. Get gateway resource profile with given gateway ID, and suppose there is no value there, so I'm not getting null, but error.
Okay, yeah, then that's a bug. So we use in point 15.
Yes, 7.15. Uh,
Yeah, please send the API method you're calling and then everything, and probably someone can reproduce that. Please send the if you did not already, please send that as a separate thread on the devel mailing list.
Sorry, sir.
No, just if you did not already do that, just send
No,
it.
sir, I haven't do it yet. And sir, second thing, sir, suppose I started Arivata server, and for first 1 or 2 minutes, getting, I always get T-socket error, means T-socket timeout. Uh, though the experiment is running, but I'm getting the T-socket timeout error, and the connection, I lose the connection.
Yeah, you
Mostly
need to
in
increase the socket timeout. Did you
first
do
minute.
that?
Sorry.
Did you increase the socket timeout and try?
Yes,
Because I
I
think
tried to increase the socket timeout to 5,000, even to 5,000, but it's not working. Means it's working, but I'm getting errors sometimes, not always.
yeah, I think yeah, we need to be able to. I think if you have the server also, we should check on the server logs if the communication is coming through. So I don't know if Supun remembers the current value we are using in PGA. Means I mean, to be safe side, we increase it high level, but that's not the right way to do it. We just need to
Yes.
find out what is it really taking to even a basic call. So this might change, of course, when you're returning a large number of data methods. So there is a little bit subjective here, but we just need to, yeah, we need to find the right range here. What is our maximum timeout we'll need? So yeah, I think for now, put a higher number and try it out. But at some point when we release the
Yeah,
point
but
15,
this
uh
means like it's working most of the time, but sometimes it gives the error. So
Yeah.
I don't think putting some higher number would work. And I
Abhishek,
try to put some.
try 20,000, which is 20 seconds. So
Yes.
5,000 is only 5 seconds.
Yes.
So just try that. That's what works for PGA most of the time.
Okay.
so
But that is not the correct way, I think.
Yeah, just try that.
There should be some.
Mhm. So Abhishek, why don't you please briefly summarize where you are first, like, and then what you plan to do next,
Okay.
and then let's see.
As I told you, I've integrated Arivata with PHP version of JANAP, and it's
Mhm.
working fine. Just these are the two errors that I face. For the first error, that gateway profile error, I made a function by myself, and to check if gateway resource profile exists or not. And for the second error, I'm taking it as an exception and running it again. So it's working right now in my server, but I think it should be corrected on Alibata side.
Yeah, so I think like let me suggest one thing here, Abhishek, on this.
Yes,
So
sir.
it looks like you guys are doing it right in the sense there's a lot of these exist kind of methods you are doing instead of like we invent I mean, trying to add all those these exist method. Let's do the
Yes,
other
sir.
way around. Let's improve a lot of exception handling on the Airavata server. So that way, like when you don't have any record, you are getting it the proper exception so that you can
Yes, sir.
diagnose them cleanly. So please
Yes, sir.
send the patches on them. So don't hold
Uh,
off onto your server. Send a patch. If you find instead of like adding a new method, I would say you need to
sir,
add the
and
enhanced
I
exception.
have added.
Yeah, send a patch. Send a patch so that others are also testing and giving you feedback.
Sure, sir, but I sent a pull request on set that. One second, I didn't remember the name.
No, you send a
Sandbox,
pull
I think.
request on the
Uh,
sandbox project,
yes,
but
sir.
this one should go on to the Airavata server. This one is a patch to the Airavata server.
Uh, I pulled a request on Sandbox server, but I didn't get the response. I think so.
Wait, let's check what is the number? What is the pull request number?
So I didn't remember. I have to check it.
Yeah. Please send that again to the mailing list. Anytime you have such thing like that, just come back onto the hip chat and ask, and then one of us should be able to merge that. Yeah, I see two from Priyanshu. I don't see anything from you. Oh no,
So
I see.
actually,
I see one now. PHP samples. No, but
yes,
I
sir.
didn't get this. I'm confused here. Why are you sending this on the sandbox? The clients pull request should go to the Airavata repo. The sandbox should have the GenApp side of the client code.
Okay, okay, sir. I thought I have to put this also in the sandbox server.
No,
I'll
no.
send it on Arivata master, sir.
Yeah. Please send this directly on the Airavata itself. All these client samples should go into Airavata master. Now I'm looking at your pull
Sure, sir.
request. I think same thing applies to Priyanshu's one also. Oh no, that's not right. Priyanshu has the pull request with Qt modules. This is the GenApp side. I think
Yes.
Priyanshu's one belongs in the sandbox correctly. Abhishek, your one need to go into the main master.
Okay, sir. And sir, on the GenApp side, I've developed the Java application, and it's working properly right now. Just few need to change few things, and by next week I would be able to integrate it with Arivata.
Yep. Sounds. Emily, do you have anything?
Yeah, I've tested his Abhishek's PHP HTML5 generated code through GenApp from a Git clone from his sandbox, and it worked. It's running jobs. I had a little effort getting my local server of Airavata up, but once I got through the install process, it was fine. And yeah, it's working nicely. Also, I've tested his Java generated GenApp language target, and it's looking nice. He's got a
So I
nice
can
user interface.
give demo right now. If you want, I can give a demo right now.
Let's do it next week. I think we are getting late
Sure,
today.
sir.
Certainly, I think that's very good, Abhishek. So let's certainly plan GSoC demos next week, and then let's probably go with you. Since you're ready, probably let's go with yours first early next week.
Sure, sir.
I'll send some emails about that demo timings. Probably we don't. Probably it's not effective use of everyone's time to do all with everyone on. Probably we need some focused ones. Probably we'll just do yours and Priyanshu's first and invite everyone else to join in. But we probably have to put the focus, make sure we answer all the questions. Yeah, Priyanshu, you want to go next, and then
Yes, sir.
guys GenApp ones.
So I had first the Qt5 module up and running in GenApp. It wasn't there previously. After that, I integrated both Qt4 and Qt5 modules with Airavata, and it's working fine. And currently, I'm fixed in that Qt Android part. The Qt Android standalone app is running perfectly in the GenApp, but while linking with Airavata, I'm getting thrift errors,
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So I will try to fix that.
Let's make sure, please. Let's please take that back right away to the thrift user mailing list.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, and then because before we jump into the other approaches and then introducing assuming that we'll need rest, let's confirm that
And
from it.
sir, I have an issue in that actually. So when I integrate thrift, I only get error from T-socket and nothing else, like T protocol or T buffer transport. So is it something that is a big issue or something?
I didn't get that, Priyanshu. Can you please repeat that
So I'm
again?
saying that I get errors only from T-socket and none other things. Like in thrift here, I'm using a number of APIs like T buffer transport, T protocol, etc. But they don't give any errors. Only T-socket gives an error.
Oh, okay. Wait, I'm just trying to parse that. What that could be. That's still. No, that means like the marshalling is working fine. The communication is having an issue here. Because tsocket is not using any HTTP there. It's rightly using tsocket. So I would say, instead of me making wild guesses, let's take it to the user mailing list. I'm on the thrift user mailing list. I'll also give context if needed. Let's take it there.
Okay, sir.
And then let's address this, because just remember that they don't have context. So please describe initially that this is what I'm trying to do. I have this Qt4. I'm just working with the thrift server. Avoid using too much. I mean, you can describe that you are using this for Airavata, but just try to keep it in their thrift language so that you'll get better responses.
So I have to keep my focus in Thrift, right?
Yeah, and because what I'm guessing here is your Evernote application has Android and iOS and all the apps. They initially work with a HTTP layer in between. Then recently, I mean, I got some information from them that they got rid of it. Now they directly work with Thrift. So unless there is a need, I'm just hesitant to jump on it. So let's get their feedback first. How to do this directly natively with Thrift.
Okay. I have Raminder here for this specific reason. Was he has a potential RESTful alternative, and since we have him here, perhaps we can let him explain what he's got.
Yeah. So the overall goal, so why I have it is to integrate with Sumo. So it's all working as it was before, and we don't want to change a lot of it. But yeah, if now I understand what we are trying to do from Priyanshu's description. So yeah, if he can directly work with the JavaScript or like have node generated and work with it, that's one option. But the rest only will give like client light type of thing, that client doesn't need any library. Other than that, I think um, it's almost the same way. It will the service I have will work with XML or JSON messages, find the same. Like what I try to do is like took a experiment object and try to create a JSON out of it. So we can do the same using REST. But yeah, I'm open if we want to first focus on thrift, and then if there is a problem, try this approach.
And so, are you sort of manually creating this this middleware to broker REST calls to Airavata, or are you using some thrift generated interface?
And so what I have is manually generated. So so what I have done is so we have these samples like create launch experiment sample. I just wrote a REST layer over it, which is very lightweight. It's not. It's just integrating with Jersey, adding those annotations to it. But I'm not dealing with any of the like JSON message creation or JSON message reading part. That's all done by Jersey automatically.
Okay. I mean, there's some advantages to having a really light client API. So I mean, it makes it easier for more people to code and access it, and also it's less resources on the client side. But you know, if Thrift works well, then I think that's definitely our first choice.
Yeah. Only challenge which we'll face in Android or any applications is updating those client libraries.
Right.
So which we have to do in Thrift few times, not all the time.
Right.
Where REST actually helps. But yeah, I think we can. So now I know the problem. So if Priyanshu will bring it to dev list, I'll be able to help him with like both the approaches, because
Sir, I have a query.
Yeah.
Sir?
Yes, yeah.
Sir, should the Thrift installed by default should work on Android, or should I have to cross-compile it if necessary?
I think you have to generate the JavaScript library, or I think there will be Android library generation also. I have to look at that, but I saw there is a JavaScript and Node.js library which you can Thrift library you can generate, which I don't think come by default as part of uh, as part of the current Airavata,
Okay.
because
And
that
sir,
will be,
should I use that library to access Airavata?
I think so. That will be a better way of doing it than like. So how you are doing right now?
So I'm trying to, I googled it a bit and I think I have to cross compare it with Android. After that only Thrift will be linked with the Qt Android part.
Okay. Yeah,
So I was,
I'll do a little bit more research and I'll reply to your email. I think there is an email already, or just I'll send you a note.
okay sir.
Yeah, so Priyanshu's code is all in, it's C++ Qt that's being using Qt tools to make an Android app from Qt5 code. And so the Node.js and JS Thrift interface, I was thinking could be a broker service that's generated and just running on some server.
I think so also, because that's what the sample even. Uh, and for Node.js, definitely there will be a broker, but I'm not sure how that, because with all these web clients like HTML, JavaScript, will face this origin of policy challenge, like from where we are originating this client request.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the server and client need to live on a like a same web server.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to solve that challenge somehow.
Thanks.
So Emily, I think you probably want to separate out in the GenApp GSoC project so that like since we are in the midterm, we want to probably help Priyanshu and Abhishek give some directions to them on what they should definitely do and what they are on the exploration one. So I think probably that way probably they are not getting lost in exploring some things and which might hinder their basic progress, I think.
Yeah, I mean they've both been making excellent progress, and they both have Airavata integrated into the into Qt generated GenApp and the HTML5 generated GenApp. Abhishek's working on the Java now, which is one of his primary tasks, the Java version of GenApp. Which is actually quite a big task because he's creating source code fragments for the whole language, and it's looking nice. And Priyanshu's getting this Android version working. So, I mean, I think we're reasonably focused, but I do agree with you that we need to review everything that needs to be done for the second half.
Yeah, I'm just worried a little bit probably because the only reason is I'm not worried on the progress. I'm just worried that because you need to because we want to avoid some getting into rat holes with some of the approaches in general. In sense, you want to like take into the security considerations, how this project will sustain once they make certain change and things like that. So I think just that way, like. We are clear how they are aligning with Airavata in general, and like how something goes intermediate. I think you want to be careful there whenever you make some decisions there. That's just a suggestion there.
Okay. Yeah, basically, we're sort of getting past the proof of concept stage. They've got the basic things functioning, and I want to get them sort of cleaned up on the GenApp side and sort of improve the way it is on GenApp and getting way past what Nadeem did last year, and then I mean we're basically an SDK. I mean we're calling Airavata as a service. So how we want to integrate that code is something we should discuss.
Yep, sounds good. And then Priyanshu and Abhishek, I think please send a smaller pull request just to the Airavata master because I still didn't see that. I see the sandbox one. Anything you are using, wherever you are calling Airavata, that client code needs to get into the Airavata master because it's more important for the future of this so that we keep maintaining them there. If this is not clear, please talk to me offline on the hip chat or just send a devilish email. But really, anything you are calling to Airavata needs to be in the Airavata master.
So I had sent a PR one when I was having error. I fixed it, so I didn't send it again.
Yeah, but even you need to break that down so that the Airavata client codes should be used from the master code.
Oh, okay, sir.
Anything else from anyone? I think. Yeah, and also I think we lost most of them, but at least whom you have, Pankaj, Priyanshu, and Abhishek, please make sure like you have on the wiki clearly documented what you have done and what you plan to do, because that will act as a case when we submit your GSoC evaluation, midterm evaluations next week.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, thanks. And I think, Emery, let's please have a call with Janab students on Monday. Means when they do the demo, probably I think we need to. Others, they're doing good progress. I think somehow they're getting isolated, so we need to. I think we need to pull it from both sides so that they're more integrated into Airavata properly, so that they'll continue to work. Everything we're working, they're making as a proof of concept right now.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay, thanks all again. Let's talk next week, and then let's plan some demos early next week, and then let's have a weekly call again on next Friday.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a nice
Thanks.
weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.